That was my attempt at coming up with an original spooky sound.
It was scary.
That was not copyrighted. Yeah.
If
you saw, yeah. Welcome back to Content Swap, aka Spooky Swap, for the month of October.
Spooky Swap. Spooky Swap.
Yep. If you listened to our last episode, we were having a fierce debate at the beginning of the episode about, well, not even a fierce debate.
Fierce debate.
We were having a mutual conversation about about how difficult it is to come up with an original spooky sound that has not been
Done
lifted
before.
from something. Yeah. You can't do it. Ooh, somebody made that up, you know? Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, here we are doing it again. We're in our third week of Spooktober.
Spooktober.
Sorry, of our Spooky Swap series.
Yep.
And what was our theme for this week? What are we doing?
So our theme was murders and hauntings. If anyone's interested in what I watched for the week. So you were out of town.
I was out of town. I was in Toronto for a work conference.
Which was poorly timed. I definitely should not have done a murders and hauntings theme when I was home alone. Because that was not fun.
Yep.
I pivoted a little bit. But anyway, this week I had watched Scream, The Roommate, American Psycho. Was supposed to watch Halloween, needed a palate cleanser, so I didn't end up watching Halloween. Then I watched Casper, Slice, and then tonight's supposed to be Poltergeist.
So are you watching Poltergeist tonight, or are you watching Halloween tonight? Because this morning you said you're going to watch Halloween.
I was going to watch Halloween, but I don't know. It's up to you. If you want to, play video games, I'll watch Halloween. But if you
this is really a conversation we should have later.
I'm okay with whatever.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. So,
okay.
but it will be based on whatever you want to do.
Oh, okay. I mean, I might want to play video games, but I do want to watch Poltergeist, so...
Well, then we watch Poltergeist.
Oh, I was saying maybe you should watch Halloween so that I could play video games.
Oh, well, then I watch Halloween.
Okay, cool. But I still want to watch Poltergeist. Maybe not tonight, though. That's all I'm saying.
We have the rest of October,
all
so
right. Okay.
we'll watch Poltergeist.
Okay, sounds good. I appreciate that. I've been out of town. Just want to do a little, something for myself.
Do it.
Okay. And that was healthy communication.
When have I ever cared about you doing video games? Doing video games.
Oh, yeah.
Doing the video game.
Doing video games at home.
Playing video games is what I meant. Yeah, cool. Sounds good.
Well,
then I'll just
yes.
watch Halloween.
Okay, cool. And I appreciate that. And then tomorrow, what are you watching?
Tomorrow's Parasite. So
I'll watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to the theme next week because that Parasite is not a part of Murders and Hauntings.
Got it.
But we'll talk about that at the end.
Well, this week we're here to talk about two things. One of which is The Roommate, which we're talking about second. The first of which was not a movie on your list. It's actually this comic book right here. It's called Batman: The Long Halloween. It was released through 1996 and 1997. Written by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale.
So when it was released, was it this whole big booklet or was it the individual?
It was individual issues. So when you're reading it, it's like, volume 1 or volume 2, and it's each one is a different holiday.
Yeah.
So, this was kind of like the big Batman comic that was coming out at that time.
Did they get released on the holidays that they?
I don't think so. That would have been
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
that's a great question, actually. That would have been excellent marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. Ooh. I don't know. I didn't look into that.
Would have been dope. It would have made sense.
It would have made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, none of this is making sense to the listener right now. So
let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Okay. So, yes. So I was tasked with reading Batman: The Long Halloween. And so I'm going to kind of do this like how I used to do it, where I talk about like my thoughts overall.
Okay.
And then get into the details of it.
Okay.
So when I first started reading this, I was struggling a bit because there's a lot of white male characters that all kind of blend in together.
Yeah.
It's hard to figure out who's who. And on top of that, because I'm not a comic person and I don't have really any exposure, I've never had any exposure to like DC comics or Marvel comics for that matter. It felt like the book was written for those who knew who these people were already.
Yeah, that's fair.
I say the book, the comics. It felt like the comics were written for people who knew everybody. And so I'm trying to piece together who's the Roman, who's what's the other guy's name that starts with an M?
Sal Maroni.
Maroni. Like, even just like I couldn't decipher when it was Bruce or Harvey that was like that was like talking. So I struggled at first. But I will say, as I kept going through it, I was really enjoying it and I really liked it. Yeah, like I realized that I really liked it when like yesterday I was at work and I brought it with me because sometimes when the store's a bit slow, we get to read. So I had brought it with me and I remember just being like, ooh, I'm excited for a slow like lull and people in here so I can like pick it up because I wanted to see what happened next. So yeah, so I really enjoyed it and I thought it was really fun.
Wow.
Great choice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So getting into like what the comic, I'm going to struggle.
It's called a comic book.
Yeah, that's true.
It's delivered in one big book. You can even call it a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Just don't call it manga, and I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. So what the story as a whole is about, it's basically about this unknown person who has now been labeled the Holiday, basically terrorizing the Romans, which is like the big crime lord.
Can I help?
Well, I mean, I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the book starts out, Batman is established in Gotham City. Mm-hmm. He's got this alliance with Jim Gordon and Harvey Dent being the district attorney, and they're planning on taking down the crime families.
The Roman.
The Roman, who is Carmine Falcone.
And his whole family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not until, I guess, the end of the first chapter. Like, that's the setup. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the first chapter, Carmine Falcone's nephew, I think, is Johnny Viti, is murdered, and somebody leaves like a pumpkin.
And it's on Halloween.
And it's on Halloween. They leave a pumpkin
yeah.
at the scene of the crime.
Right.
And then they're like, okay, somebody murdered him on Halloween, but then there's another murder on Thanksgiving with like one of those Thanksgiving baskets. And that's when they're like, all right.
Cornucopia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's when they're like, oh, there's like a holiday killer on the loose.
So they label him the Holiday. They don't, him or her, they don't know who it is.
Well, it's like the holiday killer, or sometimes they're just like, who is Holiday?
Yeah. And so the whole book is going through each of these holidays, and there's a killing on each one except for April Fool's Day. And they're trying to figure out who the heck is Holiday, like who's the person who's like killing the people tied to
like the crime
Roman
family. Yeah. Because there's like this whole aspect of, because it's the Falcone family versus the Maroni family, but all of the murders seem to favor the Maroni family, so it's making the Roman of the Falcone family very tense, and like, oh, he's got to do something about the Maroni family, because maybe they hired the Holiday killer, but nobody knows who the Holiday killer really is. And then throughout it, Batman is like trying to figure out like, who the heck is it? He starts to suspect like Harvey, like they're just trying to go through it. And then the Falcones, like the Roman, starts hiring these like villains that we like all know. So like Joker, the Riddler, or whatever. The Scarecrow dude. Mad Hatter's there.
Yeah, which like,
you didn't know that there was a Mad
Hatter? I was like, hold up. Like, what is this tie?
Batman has a Mad Hatter villain.
But it's like related to like Alice in Wonderland because
Yeah. I mean, it's
are they legally able to do that?
Yeah. Alice in Wonderland's in the public domain. But even so, it's like, it's not, there's a character this guy, I don't know a lot about the Mad Hatter, but he was in the Batman Arkham games. So, and in this, he's just another Batman villain that, based his persona on the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. And that's, yeah.
Wow. So that's the setup of the whole ordeal.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a bunch of different Batman villains in it. So something I guess I want to highlight about what makes this book stand out compared to, amongst the pantheon of Batman literature, comic book literature, is that it does kind of have this like dark, gritty, grounded feeling. It takes a lot of Batman's, very cartoonish villains and kind of keeps the cartoonishness of them, but does place them in this like very serious story in a way that somehow makes sense. And that just like, it was, it's lauded for that aspect of it, and the characterization of Batman, and like the interplay between Bruce Wayne and Batman, and like it's a book that the Dark Knight and the Batman have both drawn like very heavy inspiration from. And it's very apparent when you read it that like, oh, this is what those movies were trying to emulate. As opposed to other Batman stories, like more recent Batman stories might be a little bit more, I guess, like commercial feeling. And then ones that came out before this might feel a bit more on the campy side. I mean, well, Batman Year One, I would say, is the beginning of like the, I guess, like more serious take on Batman. And that was, I believe that it was written by Frank Miller. I believe that was in the late 80s. But Batman Year One is highly regarded as kind of like the current day canonical origin of Batman's story. And The Long Halloween was adapted to live within that Year One universe. So, it's continuing along that trend of like Batman being kind of like a serious thing and not like a, Adam West trying to help like random civilians not get hit by Joker's like overly sized rocket, like just some campy 1960s stuff. This is like, turning it into a crime thriller and making it very interesting. So it's a continuation of that kind of type of storytelling for Batman, and it was written in 1996. And like 1995, Batman and Robin had just come out with like the Mr. Freeze puns, and I think that was 1995. With like, the Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, and like Uma Thurman was Poison Ivy, and it's all just filled with puns, and it's campy and it's ridiculous. And then like this comes out and it makes things suddenly very serious, and like again placing those cartoonish villains in that more serious story, but then also not making the overarching villain a villain that we know already. It's a mystery, so it's very satisfying in that regard.
Yeah, I actually really like the campy Batman movies. I think they're a lot of fun.
I mean, the campy Batman movies have their place, but I'm more for this idea of like Batman making sense.
Yeah. But there's like, I feel like there's the Batmans that have been done, like film wise, because I haven't gotten into the comics, but like film wise, like you have the campy ones that are just like really fun and really weird and just like interesting to watch. But then you have the ones that are literally so dull and boring that you're just like, what? Like, I'm not sitting through this.
I don't know about dull and boring.
Batman Begins.
I like Batman Begins. That one's like Batman Begins is basically like Batman Year One.
It is so boring to me. I'm like, I am going to fall asleep.
All right.
But Dark Knight, I love Dark Knight. Dark Knight is like my favorite.
Yeah, Dark Knight's amazing. This book literally has like a foreword. This version of the book that I own has a foreword written by Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer, who Christopher Nolan directed The Dark Knight, and he co-wrote it with David S. Goyer. So, yeah. But then, like, when you watch The Batman with Robert Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves, it's like the opening of that movie takes place on Halloween, and that's very much to be paying homage to The Long Halloween, because it's such an influential comic book in our modern day understanding of what Batman stories are like.
Got you.
Yeah.
I do have questions as we go through this, but I will get to those when we get to it.
Okay.
Because it feels a bit abrupt to bring them up now. But so I was trying to figure out how I wanted to talk about this book, because I really didn't mark down like what really happens, and I don't want to go through what happens in each thing, I guess, linearly. So I want to kind of talk about it by like breaking it down by character.
Okay.
So
I was wondering if are we doing spoilers or no?
I feel like we're gonna have to in order, like, because at the end I have so many questions.
Yeah. Oh, you have questions about like
the
the
ending, and so we're gonna have to spoil it.
Yeah, we can do a part where we kind of say like, all right, spoilers after this part.
Yeah.
All right.
Because I do want to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Okay.
Okay. So breaking it down by character. So first, my thoughts on Batman himself.
Yeah. I have thoughts on this too.
So, if I'm being quite honest,
I'm listening.
I was like, Batman doesn't really do anything.
That's true.
Yeah, Batman really, he pops up. He was like, "You don't want to do this." And then he disappears. Or like Catwoman pops up and he's like, "Oh, gotta go. Catwoman's here. Like, I need to talk to her." And so like he really doesn't do much. And I mean, occasionally he, beats some people up that he needs to beat up. But yeah, I was like, Batman's this big person who like saves the day. He hasn't saved anyone like in this whole
Well, yeah, because it's what I kind of like about it is the fact that it's not so like Batman has to save the day by beating somebody up. It's much more complicated than that. Like they have to go
investigate.
They have to investigate. They have to go through the legal system. Like that's what makes it so interesting, is that it's not this like black and white. You can just super easily, punch the Joker a bunch of times and put him in jail, and the day is saved. Yeah. Though there is a point in the story where that does happen. But yeah, it's not that easy. It's like they're trying to root out corruption, and in what Batman is supposed to be, which is like Bruce Wayne is in this city, and the crime and corruption has gotten so bad, like his own parents are killed when he's young, and he grows up and he becomes the Batman to try and like root out that crime. In a realistic world, the most effective way to do that is to go through the legal system, and you can't just bend the rules, and that's kind of like the point.
Yeah, I like that. Like, that's cool. It just made him, like, to me, he wasn't the center of the story. Like, to me, he was the least important part of this story, and I was much more interested in all the other characters. So yeah.
And but I think that's
the point.
Intentional.
Yeah. That makes sense. Cool. I will say though, so they have like they have bubbles that's like clearly him like narrating or thinking. Yeah. And I kept thinking about Transformers. Like, at the end of Transformers when Optimus Prime is talking in the song.
Autobots, if anybody's out there, come join.
I literally kept hearing that song as I was reading Batman.
You'll find humans are more than meets the eye.
And that's how I read all of his like internal dialogue.
That's funny.
But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of all that I had on Batman, because I was just like, he really isn't the focal of this story, like the center of this story.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I have my own internal voice for reading Batman in comic books, and that's Kevin Conroy's voice, who did the voice of Batman in Batman the Animated Series and a whole bunch of stuff. The Batman Arkham games, he does the voice, and it's like I'd say the most iconic version of Batman's voice. So as a fan, it's like nice to have that auditory reference, I guess, when you're reading these, and it's like in somebody else's voice. Because without that, then yeah, you know, you might be getting Optimus Prime.
I mean, I didn't read in Optimus Prime's voice. It's just like anytime I read that like internal dialogue, that song was like like I was like putting
Oh
like
my
had that as my background, and I was like, this is lit.
Wow, that's funny. That is funny.
Yeah. So no,
Yeah.
I didn't mean like I read in Optimus Prime's voice. I just meant like
Okay.
that song kept like coming up in my head.
That's
and I was like,
so
this is so
funny.
Transformers.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
that it is notable that you bring that up, because I remember as I was reading it, like in every time there's a new chapter, because it's technically a new volume.
Yeah.
And when it's coming out, it's not all connected like it is as we have it now. Batman is always reintroducing people.
He says
He's always
everything
like, so and so related to this person. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Which is kind of helpful.
Yeah.
As you said, with everybody looking alike.
Yeah. No, it is helpful to like get that narrative again. But it's funny because he says Gotham City like 5 gazillion times in the book. He's like, blah, 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 Gotham City.
Yeah.
Gotham City this, Gotham City that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, we get it.
There's a part at the end where like Jim Gordon's talking to his wife and he's like, I believe in Gotham City. And then Batman is like, I believe in Batman.
I literally, like, talking about the I believe in Gotham City, I'm like, why? Like, why does anyone stay in this place?
Yeah.
It's clearly, like, past the point of no return. Like, and then I wrote down, hold on, there was a note that, I think, what's his name? Jim Gordon?
Jim Gordon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of
the police commissioner.
Yeah. I think he was telling like a villain or something like, I have a family. I need to be home with my family, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I would not mention that to a villain. Like, they will come after your family.
Yeah.
Like, I would not tell anybody any of my business in Gotham City because they're bound to come after them.
Yeah, it's weird that there seems to be this like line that you don't cross in this story of like, oh, you don't put people's family members at risk. Like at one point, Falcone's own son is murdered and he's not involved in any of Falcone's family business. So it's like, oh my gosh, they even murder his own son who's not involved. Like, you know, they're crossing the line. But we'll get back to that business in a second.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on Batman. I'm gonna say.
Oh, I have more to say about Batman for me
go
personally.
Go for it.
I there's this part in this book where Poison Ivy
I love that.
like
part.
seduces Batman.
Yeah.
Or seduces Bruce Wayne, really,
Yeah.
not knowing that he's Batman.
Yeah.
And he is just like incapacitated for like a month or something. And Catwoman comes and saves him.
Yeah.
Not knowing that he's Batman.
Yeah.
And also Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, who is Catwoman, are like dating in this book.
Yeah.
Not knowing who each other are.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's this part where Catwoman has to come save him, and he's like, I guess I thought that was interesting because I'm always so used to this idea of like Batman as a solution for everything. Like he would never get himself in that situation, but because this is kind of like the grounded year one timeline where like Batman can make mistakes, it's, I guess, kind of refreshing to see him not just be invincible through the power of writing. It's like, he does like slip up and makes mistakes. And
I mean, I guess that like that kind of brought me to my next point of like, and you can keep talking about Batman, but while we're on the subject of these women,
always talk about Batman.
While we're on the subject of these women, the women are so dope. Like I love even Poison Ivy, who was like seducing him and like, you know, was the villain, was a villain. I loved her. I was like, yes, seduce him. Because I don't know, it's just they were really cool and really powerful, and I loved that. And I feel like throughout the book, Batman like will be like, I don't know, tussling with somebody, and then Catwoman like gives him a hand.
Yeah, Catwoman
and it's
helps
like,
a lot.
Yeah, she literally helps in every situation.
Yeah, and she's got this like big one-piece purple costume,
It's so
and it's
cool.
like super muscly.
I literally,
it's really cool.
Want that costume for Halloween.
That's like iconic. Yeah,
Reading this, I was like, if we're gonna dress up for Halloween, that's what I'm being. I want to be that.
That's a little risque. I don't know.
I mean, it's Halloween.
Yeah, it's like
it's a one-piece suit.
It's different when you're wearing like bright purple versus like all black.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, we'll
see.
see.
Something against it?
No. It's a very cool costume.
It's super cool.
Even in like the downloadable content for Batman Arkham City, you can switch Catwoman's costume to the Long Halloween version of her costume. Yeah, it's iconic.
Can I ask a quick question about Catwoman?
Sure.
What's their deal? like
what?
So Catwoman is like, she's not a superhero, but she's not a villain. Like she's
like an anti-hero.
Yeah.
She's a cat burglar. You know, she's her. Well, at one point at the end, because there's a part kind of at the end where a bunch of villains are all together and she's there, and Batman's like, "Whose side are you on?" And she's like, "The side that I've always been on." But I would say the side that Catwoman's always been on is her own side. Like that's her whole thing, is that she's self-interested.
I love it.
But then she helps Batman when it's like she's self-interested, but she has a moral compass. I think that's Batman, or that's Catwoman's whole character, is that like she will do things for herself and she'll go against Batman if it's in her own self-interest. But if it's the greater good, then yeah, she's on Batman's side.
Who were all the Catwomans? There was like Michelle Pfeiffer. Is that her name?
Yeah,
Michelle Pfeiffer, Anne Hathaway.
Does
Zoe
Halle Berry
Kravitz.
count?
Oh yeah, Halle Berry.
She really shouldn't count. But
no.
it's not a good movie. She doesn't play Selena Kyle.
No.
She just plays this woman.
You know what? I'm going to say something very controversial.
It's not a good movie.
I don't think Halle Berry is a great actress. I just think she's really beautiful.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, name a Halle Berry role that is like
really good.
Phenomenal, yeah.
Let's see. I remember seeing her. She was in Executive Decision with I think it's a Kurt Russell movie. She's in that. I don't know if she's like doing good acting, but she's in it, and you know it's a good movie.
But not
I like
just
that movie.
What's a good movie? I mean, like, what is a role? Like, what is her?
She played Storm in the X-Men movies, which doesn't require a ton of acting. I don't know. Whatever.
I'm just saying. I mean, she was in a.
I'm not here to have a hot take on Halle Berry's career.
There's one role, I'm forgetting it, but like, didn't she get like awards for that role?
Well, she got Razzies for her Catwoman role.
No, I'm talking about something else. I feel like she got, I don't know. I mean, she has some iconic roles. But I'm just saying, yeah.
Have you seen Halle Berry do anything recently?
John Wick.
Oh. But she's pretty good in that. In like,
did you? How much?
In like Halle Berry's in this movie, let's have some fun kind of way, you know?
Yeah, I mean, not to diminish her at all. I freaking love Halle Berry.
All right.
I'm just saying.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well,
anyway,
regardless. Yeah. Then there was Anne Hathaway, Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah.
After that.
Was anyone before?
I mean, it depends on if we're talking about like the Gotham TV show, you know, all that
show.
stuff.
Yeah. I just mean like movies. Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Think so.
I always forget Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
As Catwoman.
Yeah. Ben Affleck doesn't have his own Catwoman counterpart.
I literally
right?
forgot he was Batman.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of those.
Poor Ben.
Poor Ben. Okay. So go ahead with more of your Batman stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there was just this part where I was kind of like, is he okay? Because there's this part, the chapter is Father's Day, and let's see, because Harvey and Jim Gordon are working with Batman to, you know, root out the corruption in the city, but they don't know that Batman, because there is Bruce Wayne, and at one point they become suspicious that Bruce Wayne might have some involvement with these crime families. And so on Father's Day, they go looking for him, or was it on Mother's Day? No, it's Mother. I think it doesn't matter. It's one of the parent holidays, and they go looking for him to, interrogate him, and he's like grieving his dead mom, I believe. Let's go with Mother's Day now. He's like grieving her on that day, but they're looking for him, and he's like having this whole hallucination of them, like, of his parents being killed, and that like Jim Gordon and co are like, it's like he's hallucinating that he's a kid again, and that it's like they're trying to come kill his family. And I'm like, yo, is he good? But then I was like, oh, maybe before that happens, he does have an encounter with Scarecrow, and there's like, in Scarecrow's whole thing is that he's got like
fear gas.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, maybe there's like some residual from that, which you do later find out that like, yes, that is the case. But when you're reading it, it's like, yo, you good? Like, what's going on here? And so it's a very like Bruce Wayne not being like, I guess, as fearless as we always like depict him to be, which again is kind of nice.
But do they depict him as like fearless? Because I feel like we always knew he had this like trauma, and that's like why he's.
I feel like generally Batman, outside of maybe like the movies where we're trying to like, humanize him, but like in a lot of comic books or in a lot of like animated TV shows, especially if it's not a Batman focused story and you've got like other DC Universe people there, then Batman is like, he's stoic. He's got a plan. He's here to kick butt. You probably shouldn't trust him because he's probably got a contingency plan on how to kill you if you go rogue.
Oh my gosh.
There's a whole comic book and a movie based on that comic book, based on that very premise of like all the villains basically get a hold of all of Batman's contingency plans of how he would take out all of the different superheroes.
He's has them written down.
Yeah. He's got like a whole database of like, oh yeah, if so and so.
That doesn't seem.
Yeah. Well,
secure.
So the villains like crack into his computer or something, and they get his plans, and then they start using them. And
dummy.
Yeah. But it's like, that's who Batman is. Like, that's who I typically think of as Batman. Like the man who can literally accomplish anything if you give him enough time to prepare. Like that's Batman. And so, but this version of Batman is not that Batman, which again, like grounds it in reality and makes it, I think, a more interesting read.
Can you imagine going on Batman's computer and it's like, how I'll kill the Joker? Step 1.
Well, Batman has we're not talking about how he'd kill the Joker, because he's numerous opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
That's easy peasy lemon squeezy. But it's like Superman. Like, how would he kill Superman?
Oh, I see.
Yeah. How would he kill the Flash? How would he kill Wonder Woman if she all of a sudden turned evil? Batman is like that. He's that paranoid character who does have a plan for all of that.
Honestly, we need a comic about Batman in therapy. That seems like it'd be interesting.
I'm sure one of these comic books, he's in therapy.
Like,
maybe
that's
it's like
what we really need.
It's like Supergirl is his therapist or something.
I want a whole movie of Batman going to therapy.
Wow. I'm sure somebody's probably made like some YouTube sketch comedy show based on that premise or something.
Let's dive into that.
Oh my gosh.
So do you have anything else on Batman?
Not on Batman.
Okay.
I just said he didn't seem to be very emotionally resilient, because he's like.
Yeah, he struggles in this one.
He's struggling. Yeah.
Which I like. It makes it interesting.
There is one part, actually, just while I have this note here, there's a scene that takes place in a courthouse, but he can't just be there as Bruce Wayne, but he needs to observe what's happening during this trial case. And you find he's like in a trench coat with like a fake beard and glasses and a beanie, and he's like, "Whoa, something's going on!" And it's like, because I noticed him at first, I'm like, who the heck is that guy? He seems to stand out a lot. And then you find out like, oh, that's Batman. I'm like, this isn't really that subtle. He's kind of like, who's that creepy guy?
No, there's a part at the end too where they're like at the prison and he's in like a like an officer, like kind of suit thing.
Officer suit, but then it's like,
I was like, but he's also wearing his Batman disguise.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he's a disguised man disguising as a.
Yeah, he's got his Batman suit on, and then he's got a police uniform on top of that with a helmet. So it's like a helmet on top of his cowl, and he takes off the helmet. It's like, it's me, Batman.
It was the epitome of that Tropic Thunder line where he's like, I'm the dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
I thought it was so funny.
But that's all the Batman notes, Batman
Got
character
you.
notes I have.
Got you. Okay, so I want the bulk of this, the most interesting character of all of this is Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
So I want to jump into him. So, like, it's the book starts off as like it's Harvey, Jim, and Batman, and they're like forming this pact of like we're going to, is it stop the Roman, like stop the Falcone family? They're like we're gonna make a
root
pact,
out the corruption of the city,
right? But like Harvey says some kind of like offhand things, and Jim is kind of like questioning his like morality, and he's like, you don't want to approach it like with that kind of energy, like this sort of hatred and like you want, like, we need to do this in a way that's civil, and so you're kind of just like and I'm assuming that's like to foreshadow or like to kind of set up like why Bruce would suspect that maybe Harvey is the holiday killer. So as you go through the story, it's like Harvey's like kind of doing things that are less ethical.
Yeah, he slowly starts to do less and less ethical stuff.
Yeah, but something that I want to, before we even like jump into that, at some point, like throughout the whole story, things happen to like Harvey and his wife that are like super dangerous. Like someone like blows up their house.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I literally wrote, because Harvey's just like totally fine after all these things keep happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, Harvey has 9 lives. Is he Catwoman? Like,
oh my gosh. That's a fair,
I'm like, how is he just like, like these things are happening and he's just going unscathed? Like his whole wife was like paralyzed in the, not paralyzed, but like in the hospital.
She was in the
just
hospital
like,
after the explosion, but just like, she survived.
Yeah, she survived, but like, she was torn up. Like she was not okay. And he was just fine.
I mean, she ends up okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just like, how are all these things happening to him and he's just fine? And like at some point they thought he was dead. Oh, it was after the explosion. They thought he was dead.
They thought he was dead.
He wasn't. He was fine. Something else happens, but I don't remember. But anyways, so towards when they're in this like court scene, so basically they catch Maroni.
Mm-hmm.
And they take him to court. And Maroni throws like acid on Harvey.
Spoilers.
Oh, my bad.
If you don't know who Harvey Dent is.
I didn't think that was like a spoiler.
No, it's fine. Yeah, that's not that much of a spoiler. But it's, well, I mean, I guess at the time when this was written, Two-Face was already a character.
Okay, that was one of my questions. That's why I brought it up. Because I was like, okay, so if they throw acid on him, he becomes Two-Face in this thing.
Yes, Harvey Dent is Two-Face.
Yeah, and I was like, why is that included in the story? Didn't we already know he's Two-Face? Like, I didn't know. This is my question. It's like, how do comics work? Do they like have these?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like, do they have these like plot points happen in multiple stories as if they're like separate, as if they're their own story, or is it like there's a comic where like boom, Harvey's Two-Face and we know that for the rest of the comics that happen?
It's pretty much that. It's like up until this point, Two-Face's whole thing was that like, oh, he's Harvey Dent, he used to be the district attorney, and like, but now he's Two-Face, and that's like his whole thing. So this was a way for them to integrate like Harvey's Two-Face origin story into like this crime thriller drama story of like, oh, he used to be district attorney and he like was allied with Batman, and
so
like
this is like his origin. And this is the only piece of content that has his origin.
Well, Two-Face, yeah, I don't know that maybe they like mentioned it offhand, or they like. You know, maybe when Two-Face was first introduced in the comic books, in whatever year that was, maybe they had something for that then. But in the Batman Year One kind of like continuity where they are kind of like rebooting things and making it very grounded. It's, they're writing in Harvey Dent's origin as like he was a good guy. He did want to do the right thing. But then he slowly started to become corrupted and like then he gets the acid in the face, and that's when he just like has a
Wait, but I just want to say, the way this was like written had me dying laughing. I mean, I hate to laugh at a man who got acid thrown in his face. Like, that's awful. Yeah. But the way it happened, like Maroni was just like, boom.
He's just like here. Yeah, he just pulls it out of his pocket. He's like, whoosh.
And Harvey's
here
like,
you go. He's like, oh yeah.
But it's just like the way it happened. He was like, take that.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this?
But it's like that's kind of like the commonly accepted origin for who Two-Face's character is now. Yeah. It might have been more of a cartoonish version when he was originally created, but this was like, yeah, let's dive into like in this universe, what is what did that story look like? How did this man become this Two-Face figure?
Yeah.
And that's the exact story that they did in The Dark Knight, which made it so interesting. And it's like, if you don't know, like some people might know who Two-Face is, but they don't know who Harvey Dent is. Like might not know that that's his name. So when you have this story where it's like there's this Harvey Dent character, and like this is what happened for me when I was in like 8th grade and The Dark Knight came out. I'm like, oh, this Harvey Dent guy, he's helping out Batman. And then when there's like that twist and he becomes Two-Face, that for me was like, what? Like because I knew who Two-Face was, but I didn't know that he was Two-Face. So, and they do that. I mean, they did it here first in the comics, and it's a really well written twist, and it hadn't been depicted that way yet. They just hadn't really dived into that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I just wanted some clarity because I was like, but we knew this. I wrote down, this is like my notes from the beginning of the book when they talked to Harvey, and I was like, I literally wrote, isn't Harvey Dent Two-Face in The Dark Knight? Yeah. And then it happened, and I was like, oh, okay. So I'm not tripping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was interesting. I realized I didn't even have any more notes on Harvey. He was just a very interesting character, and like interesting to see how he developed or got corrupted, I guess is the best way to put that. Yeah, he like jumps into the sewer. Then like
after so he gets acid to the face, and then they're doing surgery on him, and then he like freaks out, kills his doctor, goes to the sewer, starts hanging out with Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. And yeah, even before that, I wrote a note where I was like, is Harvey okay? Because like his wife comes down into the basement to check on him, and he's just like sitting in a chair shirtless. And
exactly.
I'm like, what?
You see?
What's going on, man?
Yeah, that's why I really liked his character in this book, because you see the progression of like just the slight things he would say, and you're like, is this man doing all right? And then it just got progressively worse, and then he just lost it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would lose it if half my face was burned, like with acid. I'd be like, what the heck?
Okay. Well, all right. Well, what other characters did you want to focus
on? So that's really it. So if you want to talk about the end.
Yeah. Okay. We can go into spoiler territory.
Yeah.
All right.
Spoilers. So if you don't want to listen, fast forward.
Yeah. We'll either include the timestamp for when we're not talking about this anymore in the YouTube description. Maybe just assume we'll take, 10 minutes on this.
Yeah.
All right.
So at the end, we find out, so first we find out Alberto's the holiday killer.
Alberto Falcone. Who is that?
Yeah, so
we should probably clarify.
Yeah, Alberto is the Roman son.
Yeah, Falcone's son.
Yeah.
He gets killed on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, and like he's the one who was not a part of the family business. And the whole explanation is like he was basically resentful because he wasn't included in the family business, but he offered to help. He wanted to be a part of it.
Yep.
And he was basically
He went
just
to Oxford.
Yeah, he's basically just getting treated like crap. And so then he was like, forget all y'all. I'm killing y'all.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, yeah, he started killing people in the family on holidays.
Yeah.
But it goes deeper than that.
Yeah. And so this is where I was confused. So they basically...
Understandable, because I had to, the first time I read this, and I know what you're going to talk about, the first time I read this, I had to read a whole analysis on it.
Yeah, because it makes no sense. So they lock...
It does make sense.
Well,
it kind of doesn't, but it does. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, so they lock him up, and he's in jail. And they're like, he's a holiday killer. We figured that out.
Yeah. They caught him. Yeah.
And so at the end of the comic, we see Harvey's wife, Gilda.
Mm-hmm.
And Gilda is talking about how she killed everyone. Like, she was the mastermind behind... At some point, they used like a pacifier, like nipple to...
it's a baby bottle nipple.
Yeah, sorry.
On the tip of a
gun to silence it.
Specific gun to silence it. Yeah.
And like the specific gun that was used, there was like a reason for that or whatever. And so like she's talking about how she was the one who was doing it, and Harvey caught on because she wanted to like have their family back. Like he was always working. She was like, I need you home. Mm-hmm. And so that's why she was doing it. And then Harvey caught on and kind of finished it for her. Mm-hmm. But I was like,
okay.
What?
So let me help explain.
Yes.
So the first killing of Johnny Vitti on Halloween that started this whole like who is the holiday killer thing. Yeah. That was actually Gilda. So like Johnny Vitti was kind of like the center of like a bunch of stuff, and so she killed him and was hoping, in the hopes that like Harvey would it would help Harvey let go of the case and all of that, like help solve the problems if she started just like murdering folks,
as one does
to try and help solve their partner's problems, right?
My mom's calling.
Yeah, I see your mom's calling.
I call her back.
So she was the original killer. She started it.
Yeah.
And the Thanksgiving murder and the Christmas murder were also her. So she started it, but then Alberto took the opportunity to
pretend
that he died on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And then he ended up like carrying on what the holiday killer was doing because he was resentful, and he was like, well, you know what? Like, I'm going to do that. Which is, I guess, as I say that, it's kind of like, it feels like a stretch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like
was Gilda just like,
why did she stop?
Yeah.
Maybe the exploded house was like, maybe not. I don't know. But the whole thing is that like Alberto picks it up, and he's the one that does it for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And she stopped, but it's implied that Harvey knew that she was the one that started it, which is why he's not focused so much on the holiday killer. He's focused on taking down the Falcone family. Whereas like everybody else is worried about the holiday killer. He's like, these dang corrupt people. Rawr. Mm-hmm. So, because he knows that it's his wife. And that's why when the Batman is in Arkham Asylum talking to Calendar Man, who up until this point was just like a joke of a villain, but now he's being treated like this serial killer that kills people on specific days of the calendar. Batman's asking him because he's like, there's a holiday killer out there, right?
Yeah.
And that's why every time Batman's talking to him to try and kind of like get into the mind of the holiday killer, Calendar Man's already got it figured out, and he keeps switching between saying he and she.
Yeah.
Because the Calendar Man's he's figured out like, this is two people, and one's a man and one's a woman.
See, I didn't think about that. I mean, I knew he was like flipping. I noticed he was flipping between he and she, but like I thought it was a woman. I was like, the holiday killer is a woman, but I didn't think it was Gilda. I thought like maybe it was Catwoman or something. Like I thought some female character was gonna come up and that was gonna be who the holiday killer was. Because I had written when like Alberto was like, I'm Holiday, I was like, that's lame. I like wrote in my notes, that's lame, because I was like, why? Like I don't care about, like, why would we care if he was the holiday killer, you know? I was like, there's got to be something more. And then when it was like Gilda, I was like, huh? Like what? Like this came so left field, like out of left field, like what? Okay, well that makes more sense.
Yeah. I mean, and I did have to read a whole thing about it.
It's not very clear.
It's not very clear. I mean, a lot of it isn't clear. It's a very specific art style that is actually, like, at first it kind of turns you off, but at least for me, I was kind of like turned off by the art style. But then as it went, it's like, it's very appealing. It's very unique. There's nothing quite. I've read a bunch of comics and I haven't seen any that's quite drawn this way.
Yeah. I really like the art style.
Yeah.
Like I think it makes it kind of scary. Like it gives you that like kind of like creeped out vibe, the way they, especially like the way they draw the villains.
Yeah.
I was like,
the way
cool.
that they draw the Joker.
Yeah.
He's got like 20,000 underteeth.
Yeah. I know. Or like, was it the Riddler dude? I think it was the Riddler. I like the way they drew him too.
Yeah.
I don't know, I thought it was really cool. There was something I was gonna say and now I've forgotten. But yeah, but you know what? I like that it was Gilda because I feel like the moral of the story is the women. Yes, the women. Do not underestimate these women. They are getting things done.
So there's actually there's a sequel comic to this called Batman Dark Victory, which I would say is just as good. Like it's a perfect continuation of where this leaves off, and it keeps going. Like Robin gets introduced in it, and it's kind of like the modern take of like Robin's origin stories, and it's like, as I said, it's just as good. In some ways it's like almost better. I remember I've only read that one once, but I remember as I was reading it 10 years ago thinking like, I'm so enthralled in this right now, and I'm so glad that it's like keeping things going in a really interesting way. And it does dive a little bit more into Alberto and his motivation and well, I think his motivation, but like like he doesn't just get caught in this and disappear. There's more after that. And it is all really interesting.
Yeah. The last thing that I want to say about this, I really like when Batman goes to the Calendar Man and he's like talking about like, oh, I think it's Harvey. And Calendar Man's like, Harvey Dent, the Gemini? I was like, that's funny. It's like the Gemini. I'm like, that. Why? That's. Yeah. I don't know why.
Well,
that's so funny.
Gemini. They say Gemini's are
two-faced.
Yeah.
I know. I got a Gemini best friend, and my grandma's a Gemini.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah. So overall, I loved this. It was fun. You said there's a movie. There's a live action.
Oh
movie?
yeah, they just they just made this. So I mean, a lot of these Batman comic books that are like iconic, they've started creating adapted animated movies for. And so yeah, The Long Halloween, they did a part 1, part 2. Each one's about like an hour and 20 minutes. So total, it's like 2.5 hours.
It's animated.
Animated, yeah. They just made that last year, and it's on HBO Max. Gotcha. I haven't watched it, but
I'd be
interested in giving it a watch.
Yeah, they should do like a adult Lego Batman, like keep Will Arnett and all that, but just like do this story.
That'd be.
And it's like for adults, because I mean it'd be pretty. Yeah. It would be too much for kids, but could you imagine?
I'd have to see it.
I think it'd be interesting.
Well, the whole Will Arnett thing is supposed to be like funny. Yeah,
but I think you can make it adult, and it would be even funnier.
All right. Well, yeah. So I mean, I thought this would be good. It's Long Halloween.
Yeah.
the killings start on Halloween, and that's why it's called The Long Halloween, because
Doesn't it end on Halloween too?
it also ends on Halloween. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a good one.
It is.
It's like in a writing sense, it's good. Yeah.
I like it.
So I appreciate that you enjoyed it so much, because I remember when I wrote a movie review for The Batman, I highlighted how it was really depicting kind of like a more accurate picture of what Gotham City is like, and how the Batman, like the modern kind of Batman comics that just focus on Batman, have been depicting his story, and we haven't quite gotten that to that degree in the live action movies, not until the Batman. So yeah, I mean, this to me, this is like quintessential Batman, like what it's supposed to be like. So that's why it's good. And I don't have my copy of Dark Victory anymore, but I'm probably gonna go buy it like after doing this, because I want to read it again. Because as I said, it's just as good. You look at any top 10 comic book lists for the Batman, this is like The Long Halloween is probably, I think I was reading it. I was reading some trivia. I think IGN.com did like a top Batman comics, and Long Halloween was number 4. Dark Victory is probably number 5. And Batman Year One and Dark Knight Returns, I imagine, are the top 2. And then Batman the Killing Joke is probably also in the top 3 as well. And then after those, Long Halloween, Dark Victory. That's an easy top 5 on Batman comics right there. And they're all really good in their own ways.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was my first comic book exposure.
Yeah, it really was, wasn't it? Well, all those other ones that I just named, I own them. Except for Dark Victory, but now I'm going to buy it again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Da, 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 da. Okay. Intermission time. All right. So we're here to talk about a little movie called The Roommate. I don't know if you know this movie, dear listener, but it came out in 2011. It stars Leighton Meester and Minka Kelly, and it's about this girl named Sarah. Yeah, Sarah Matthews. She goes to University of Los Angeles, which is not a real school. They're like, oh yeah, ULA.
I mean, you can't use the real schools.
You could.
Oh yeah, you could, I guess.
But it's always more entertaining when they use the fake one. It's like University of Los Angeles. Yeah. In real life, it's UCLA.
Is it because it's like a horror film that you can't use the real name?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, sure. You know, it's probably better to make it for a horror movie, not a real school.
Yeah.
It's not.
I'm talking about,
the schools wouldn't want
that.
Yeah.
That's like bad press.
Yeah. But, I mean, largely you can infer that this is probably UCLA, but it's ULA, okay? Yeah. So, yeah, they go to University of Los Angeles. Sarah Matthews, she is a freshman at this school. She's a design student. Like, she wants to get into fashion design. She has a horrible blue fedora hat that she likes to wear sometimes. It'll come up later. Allie from Allie and AJ is in this movie.
From Allie and AJ.
And from Phil of the Future, if that helps too. And so, you know, she moves into her dorm room. She hasn't met her roommate yet, but she becomes friends with Allie from Allie and AJ. And they're like, let's go to a frat party. And they're like, all right, yeah. They go to a frat party. There's a band there. The drummer is like, you know, making eye contact with her, checking her out. They're having a conversation, and he's all like hitting on her and stuff, and she's like, I don't feel very good. And he's like, well, you know, we actually spiked the punch, and we have like a whole thing that we, you know, after a girl's had 3 cups, we have to get her upstairs, or else we do kitchen duty. And he's saying this so matter-of-factly, like, yeah, that's normal. And it's like, that is so freaking scary.
Like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's like, this
people
is normal.
talk
yeah.
like that? Like, in college, no frat person has ever said at least that I've heard, has ever said anything like that. Like, what the heck?
Yeah,
was that not a red flag?
That's big. And she's like, yeah, he's in a frat. Like, that's what they do, you know? And it's not even sure, like, you know, he's partly joking. Like, he reveals that he's joking, but it's like, maybe was he just joking about the kitchen duty, but they actually do spike the punch?
But, like, even when he's like, oh, I was joking, he was like, I was just trying to get you to, like, he's like, and he, like, says, like, I spilled that on you on purpose so you would take off your shirt.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's like,
they started talking because they spilled drinks on her.
And so I'm like, even if he was joking, he's like, oh, I was joking because I was trying to, like, smash.
Right.
And I was like, what? That doesn't make sense.
And he's like, oh, like, I'm going to get yelled at by my frat brothers for helping girls leave a frat party.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's so
that
scary.
is like the most, like, can we not?
Horrific thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's already
sus.
Just sus. Yeah. Red flags through the roof.
Yeah.
But you know what?
But they never come back to it.
They never come back to it.
They're like, he's a great guy.
And ultimately, he's a good guy. Yeah. So that's what kind of movie we're in for.
Yeah.
All right. So she comes home. Sarah comes home to her dorm room. Her roommate is there just kind of sitting in the dark.
The way you said it. Her roommate's there sitting in the dark.
Because she is. Her roommate's name is Rebecca. She's a little weird. She gives Sarah a pill for her hangover the next day. Sarah is using a Sony Ericsson in the year 2011, which she really shouldn't be, but Sony must have helped produce this movie. Because iPhones and smartphones are very much a thing at this point, but Sony loves to get the Sony Ericsson in movies where they can get it. If you watch Casino Royale, the Daniel Craig, the first Daniel Craig Bond movie, he is very clearly using a Sony Ericsson. So they clearly had, and then I noticed it again in this movie, 4 years or 5 years after Casino Royale came out, they're still doing this Sony Ericsson ad campaign in movies well into, iPhone popularity. I think, iPhone 4 probably came out that year. Anyway, regardless. So Sarah has an ex, and Sarah's ex, their whole thing was that they wanted to go to Brown together, and she got into Brown, but then he got put on a waiting list. And so she decided to go to ULA.
Well, they both decided if we didn't both get into Brown, we would go to
ULA. Yeah. Right. But then, like 2 weeks before or whatever, a spot opened up at Brown for him, and he decided to go. So that's why they are broken up. And he'll come into play later, but for now, forget about him. Just remember that he's there. So she starts going to her classes, and she wants to take Billy Zane's class. Yes, Billy Zane from Titanic fame is in this movie. I mean, it was really like Titanic, and then he just like, I'm sorry, Billy Zane, but yeah, you just haven't been in a lot of good stuff lately.
Quick side note, Rebecca's mom was also in Titanic, so there's two Titanic actresses. She played
the actress that plays Rebecca's mom.
Yeah,
I see.
She played the main girl's mom. Was it Kate Winslet's mom?
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, so yeah, Billy Zane is in this movie. He is the fashion design professor that Sarah wants to take classes with him. So, Billy Zane's given his whole like, even you can be an artist speech that like you just get from any movie with like the first lecture for a college course. Like it's just so typical. Like he's given his whole like inspirational, like some of us can be artists, blah 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 blah. And he's got like a scarf and like one of those hats that art people like to wear.
This movie's definitely like, what is the most stereotypical college experience?
Yeah.
Let's put it in here, even though it is not at all accurate.
Yeah, and like she's crashing the class. Like she doesn't have
She's not enrolled.
She's not enrolled in the class. So, but he's making eyes at her during the lecture. And then afterwards, she goes to talk to him. And he accepts her application to be in his class because of her style. That's what he says. He's like, not everybody has style, but, you do. So you can take my class. And she's wearing
ugly.
this awful scarf, her blue fedora, as I mentioned earlier.
It's just a terrible.
So
it's like a scarf, too, with like a tank top.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, oh.
It's so bad.
Yeah, it's
so
bad. It's bad. And then she wears the fedora to the club.
Literally.
Right after that.
Literally.
Same day, she goes to the club. She's wearing the fedora. She's the only person in the club wearing a hat. Anyway, so she starts spending time with Rebecca, her roommate, and this is what I start to notice. Rebecca they're spending a lot of time together, and Rebecca's kind of showing signs of being a little overprotective of Sarah, or just generally obsessive over her. And they're getting to know each other, and they go to an art show together, and Sarah at one point says that her favorite movie is The Devil Wears Prada, and so Rebecca responds to this information by putting a Devil Wears Prada poster up above her own bed, and
right, isn't that weird?
Which is
why
pretty weird. And also at that point I realized hey, you have a pretty massive dorm room for two people.
I was literally
just the movies doing their thing.
Yeah, I was is this how big dorm rooms are in
no
California schools? No. I mean, as much as their freaking tuition is,
yeah,
they should be that big.
At UCLA the rooms they're not that big, especially not for a freshman. Yeah. And there's usually 3 people
in one room.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So yeah, even while Sarah's out, Rebecca's in the room, going through her stuff. She tries on her jewelry at one point, which is really creepy. And Sarah comes back and notices that Rebecca's wearing her necklace, and she's like, "Is that my necklace?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, sorry." And Sarah tells her you can have anything of mine except for this. Which is I would not tell my new roommate, you can have anything in mine.
I mean, she say have. She was you can borrow.
Borrow, yeah. Whatever. Still. Except for this, because it was given to her by her dead sister, Emily. The way I said it was
given to her by her dead sister.
Her dumb dead sister or whatever. No, yeah. So this is when we find out that Sarah's sister, Emily, died when she was younger, and she has a tattoo on the upper left part of her chest that says Emily, in honor of her sister. And so she's yeah, this necklace was my sister's, please don't take it. So then the drummer comes back into the equation, and they are going to go on a date. Sarah and drummer guy, I think what's his name? Steve?
I don't know.
Steven. His name's Steven. Yes. I was going to say Doug.
Doug. Oh my gosh.
It may as well have been Doug. But, Steven. They are going to go on a date, and Rebecca, by the way, if you can't tell by this point, I'm going to go through the whole movie. We'll get there. Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of notes here. We'll get there. So Rebecca gets surprise tickets to this artist that she showed to Sarah, to the art show, and she's like, let's go. I got you a ticket. And Sarah's like, oh, I have a date, but you know what? I'll cancel it. Let's go. And so cancel the date. And
which maybe I'm just a meanie. I would have been I would have gone on the date. Because
I'd say that makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you had the ticket. You didn't tell me.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have felt bad about it either.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of get the sense that Sarah is starting to kind of feel bad for Rebecca. She kind of needs me to be her friend. Yeah, I'm wondering. Oh well, yeah. There are just parts up until this point where Allie from Allie and AJ is being kind of just likes to go to parties and like get really drunk and dance. And Rebecca, the roommate, is not having it with her. She does not like her. She's like, she's a bad influence on Sarah, which red flag behavior right there. But yeah, like, is it when they go to this art show, Rebecca gives herself an ear piercing by hand to try on Sarah's earring on the fly? Like, just...
Yeah, so Sarah's
weird.
like, so Rebecca's like, I have these 2 tickets. Will you come with me? She's like, yeah, sure. And she's like, but let me like pick your outfit. Like, let me help you with this outfit because you're not going to go like that.
Yeah.
So she like gives Rebecca a jacket, like a leather jacket, and then gives her earrings and then like walks off, I guess, to go get ready. And Rebecca, her ears aren't pierced. And so then she just shoves the earring through her earlobes, which like earrings are not pointy. Like they're not sharp enough to be able to do, like there's
You
no
can't see
way.
that,
Yeah. There's no way. But you know, movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And creepy
This is when
roommate.
this is when you're like, all right,
Something's
something's up.
very off. Yeah.
Like what the heck?
Yeah. Well, and then after that, like Allie from Allie and AJ is getting up to get, like, she walks out of her dorm room to get water, and Rebecca is just sitting outside of her room, like waiting for her, and she just like gets up, gives her a nasty look, and walks away.
Yeah.
Which is
Scary.
terrifying. Yeah.
I would be out of that dorm. As soon as that happened, I'd be like,
Yeah.
move me.
Well,
I am not staying here.
Yeah, and this is when Allie goes and tells Sarah, like, you know, there's something up with your roommate. And yeah, clearly there is. And also at some point, Sarah meets her friend Irene, who does fashion. She'll come into play later. Just remember Irene. So then Sarah starts going on dates with Steven again. And then just, I guess, know that. Because, you know, she blew him off for the art show, but then she starts going on dates with him, and they're like developing a relationship. All right. Now, there's a scene where Allie from Allie and AJ is in the shower.
Wait.
Oh, did I miss something?
You skipped a part.
Okay.
So there is a part where Allie from Allie and AJ
Don't know her character's name.
Yeah.
I didn't write it down.
She asked Sarah, or she asked both Sarah and Rebecca, she's like, hey, we're going out to a bar. Would you like to come? Rebecca's like, club scenes are not my thing. I'm going to stay here. And Sarah's like, I'll go. So they go out to the bar. And this is why Rebecca like gave her that stare down, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
So they go out to a bar. They're having fun, whatever. They go to dance. Sarah goes to like go pee and can't find Allie. And so she's like looking everywhere, and she had given
right.
Allie her like phone and everything. And so she's like stranded. Her friend just left her at a bar.
Yeah.
She like has to figure out something. So she goes to a like diner and calls Rebecca and is like, hey, can you come get me? Like, I don't know where the heck Allie went.
Yeah.
And I need help. And so Rebecca comes. And so this is like really where Rebecca is like, I can't stand this girl. Like, she's horrible. Why? Like, she abandoned you. Like, she's like telling her, she's like, I would never abandon you like she would. And like all this stuff. So, yeah.
This is when I'm like, something's up. So there's a part where Allie goes into the shower, and I'm like, Rebecca's coming for her. The lights turn out, and then I don't even know how to describe this. The lights turn off, and Allie's like, what the heck?
Yeah, she's like, someone's in here.
Yeah,
like, why? Turn the light on.
She turns off her shower, and she like puts her towel on, and then the shower the shower on the opposite side of the bathroom turns on. So she like walks over there, and she's like, I know it's you. And she like opens up the curtain, and like, ooh, nobody's there. And she's like, okay. She turns that shower off, and then like her original shower turns on again. And she's like, oh my God. She like walks over there, and like I don't know, like nobody's there.
No one's there.
And then the lights turn on, and then the door closes, and she's like, okay, like this girl's, a freak, like, and then she like just, continues on her shower. Nope. Rebecca like tackles
body
her.
slams
Yeah, body
her to the
slams her to
ground.
the ground, and is like, you're a terrible influence on her. Stay away from her, and rips her belly ring out.
It makes my stomach like clench every time I see that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, she's like, stay away from her.
Yeah, she's like, yeah. So she's like, hey, yeah, stay away from like your roommate. Oh, yeah.
No, yes. So Rebecca tells Allie, like, stay away from Sarah.
Stay away from Sarah. And then Allie, like, literally moves out of that dorm, and she's
she
like
should.
terrified of Rebecca.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, after that, there's a part where, like, Sarah and Steven went on a date, and they get back to the dorm, and Rebecca's like, where were you? I kept calling and calling. Like, where were you? And it's like, whoa.
Chill.
Yeah, chill.
Like, I'm a grown adult.
Yeah. Also, not really relevant, but they're using a website called Frienders with a Z, which is basically MySpace. And Rebecca sets Sarah as her best friend.
And like the very first picture is like a picture of them too.
Yeah.
And so Sarah's like, I'm her best friend. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like she just met me.
Yeah. And then Rebecca starts stalking Steven in the library. And that's when I'm like, this is amazing. Like,
We get a bunch of clips too where it's like Sarah will be somewhere with Steven and we just see Rebecca in the distance,
she's like
glaring
at them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I was around the time where I was like, this movie is amazing. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's bad. Like, it's a really
it's a
bad movie.
Yeah.
But it's like,
so entertaining.
it's so entertaining. Like, the horrors of like the roommate, the whole they do everything. They don't just stop at her being creepy. They go all the way. So buckle up, because more stuff's about to happen.
It gets crazy.
Yeah. So like, she's watching Steven, like watching him from the shelves between the books. There's like a whole shot where you see her eye between the books. It's like, yes.
It's so funny.
And oh man, like Tracy. That's Allie from Allie and AJ's character's name. I have it written down here. So, well, whatever. We've been doing that, so we'll keep on it. So, Allie from Allie and AJ, like, she tells, like, Sarah, like, yeah, your roommate off, bad, no. And,
well,
like,
it's not even like she tells her. Like, Sarah goes up to her and is like, hey, like, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
And she's like, I heard you moved out or something like that. And she's like, your roommate's, like, scary. And, she sees Rebecca coming towards them and she just dips. She's like, bye.
Yeah. And then, like, Sarah's asking Rebecca about it, and Rebecca's like, on top tier gaslighting duty, and is like, oh, no, like, she misunderstanding.
She's like, she's always been flaky. So, typical behavior.
Oh, my God. All right. Then this is where things really start to ramp up. So Sarah leaves her phone in the dorm room while she is with Steven. And her phone rings, and it's her ex-boyfriend, the one that went to Brown. Remember him?
I think his name's like Jason.
Sure, Jason. They could have given him any name.
Yeah.
Rebecca picks it up, and it's Sarah's ex, Jason, and because Jason's like, he's reaching out, he's like, can we talk? Like, I miss you, all this stuff.
Gross.
And yeah. And this is when Rebecca is like, starts whispering into the phone, pretending to be Sarah, and they have phone sex. And it's juxtaposed. This scene is juxtaposed with
Sarah
and Steven actually having sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Oh my God. So Rebecca and Jason are having, this phone sex. Mm-hmm. And then they wrap that up. And then she just goes, "Don't ever call me again." And he's like, "What?" And like, boom, hangs up the phone. All right, moving on. What happens after that? Sarah's friend Irene suggests moving in.
Oh, we forgot about the
cat. Yeah. All right.
So much happens in this movie.
All right. So at one point, Sarah finds a stray cat. She picks it up.
He's so cute.
It's a very cute little kitten. And so they keep it, and they're like, "Oh, what should we name it? Let's name it Cuddles." So Sarah and Rebecca are keeping this cat that they're not supposed to have in their dorm room, and its name is Cuddles. Mm-hmm. All right. So remember, that's just happening throughout this whole thing. So Sarah's friend Irene, Sarah's hanging out with Irene at Irene's place, Irene suggests moving in with her with the stray cat Cuddles, and she offhand mentions it to Rebecca as an idea, and Rebecca does not take this news well at all. She is not having it. How does she respond? She kills Cuddles in the dryer.
Yes.
She just leaves Cuddles in the dryer to die.
What's really shocking to me, this whole time, Sarah's so dumb, because when she mentions offhand to Rebecca, "Oh, yeah, Irene mentioned me maybe moving in, and she has this whole big place. It's really nice. I can keep the cat." And Rebecca's like, "No, you're my roommate. You're supposed to stay. And I was like, if my roommate said that, I would be so concerned.
Yeah.
I would be like,
yeah,
let's take you to the counseling center maybe, because that's not, you're a bit codependent.
Yeah. No, Sarah.
I know, Sarah's just like, it's just a thought.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, throughout the movie, Sarah should know better.
Yeah.
There's been enough red flags.
Literally.
Yeah, she's gaslighting herself at this point.
Yeah.
So Rebecca kills Cuddles, and then when Sarah gets back,
that's the worst part of the whole movie. Her just putting the cat
kitten
in the
dryer. Yeah, and it's like, have fun getting warming up or whatever. I don't remember what the exact line is. And I'm like, girl, no. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then she gets all upset when Sarah gets home, and she's like Cuddles, I lost him and he ran away. And
she does it on purpose. So she keeps doing this thing where she because right before, I think before this was when she beat herself up, right?
No, not yet. That's later.
Gotcha.
That's later.
Well, yeah. Well, her whole thing is crying to
she needs Sarah to feel bad for her.
Needing Sarah to take care of her. So she does these things. It's such an act, and so she's crying "I'm so sorry. Do you hate me?" Blah blah blah.
Yeah, just to have, all to get her attention.
Yeah,
all the time.
Just to have her that attention and that validation.
Yeah.
And keep her around.
Yeah. It's
toxic.
This is really scary stuff.
Honestly, it's super scary.
All right, so keeping the ball rolling, because there's just more of this. I mean,
it's amped up.
Yeah. So Billy Zane, with wearing his hats and scarves, is talking to Sarah after class, and he's like, "Yeah, that's why I go to Paris Fashion Week every year." And and he's like, and I'm allowed to take one student a year as an assistant. Usually it takes seniors, but sometimes I meet talented young people such as yourself. It could be a big opportunity. And she's like a freshman. It's her first semester.
Her designs are not that great.
She's wearing this ugly fedora. And then he kisses her. And,
which, we all saw that coming.
Yeah, we all saw that coming, and she's like, nah. She goes and tells Rebecca, of all people,
literally,
about it, and
I mean, it was definitely, I understand, because it was definitely in the heat of the moment. It had just happened, and she's like, I can't believe this happened.
Yeah. She goes and tells Rebecca about it, and she's like, I'm pretty sure he's married, too. So Rebecca's like, all right, I'm on this. which you know is bad news.
Literally.
So
this is the one time though I was like, I mean,
well, yeah, it's I'm like, you know,
I don't think it was that much of a bad thing.
This man's about to get his just desserts, but in the just not in a. Well, all right. Well, we'll just go through it.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I'm like, this professor's dead. Like, he's gonna die. He doesn't. No. Maybe career ender. Yes, but dead. No. So Rebecca shows up and she's like, "Oh, it's like the last day to drop a class, and I would love to take your class." And she like starts seducing him, and then they start making out, and then she starts pretending that he's hurting her, and he's like, "Oh, such a tease."
Gross.
And then she's trying like really hard, and she records it and basically just starts blackmailing him like super hard, and then like he gets replaced by another by like a female professor. And so he exits the movie, and you know, Rebecca, she took care of it.
I was like, I mean, he deserved it.
Yeah, but
he deserved it.
You know, when
she basically like anonymously submitted it to, I guess, the program person,
to
and
the
then
dean,
and apparently multiple girls or something. They state like multiple girls had said that like he had sexually harassed them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we definitely, he earned it, you know.
Yeah.
But you know when Rebecca's on the case, like it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
So, all right. So at this point, this is what you were talking about earlier. Rebecca starts self-harming herself hard. Yeah. Like she like stabs herself with the trigger warning, by the way. Like, you know, I mean, just overall,
that
like Rebecca. Yeah. There should have been a heavy trigger warning on this.
So much toxicity.
Yeah, and just like the depiction of mental health, like which is
very,
not great. It's
I know. I
it's
really
for
hate
entertainment's
I know.
sake.
I hate when movies
good.
do like mental health as like they're the villain type of thing.
Because I will say their depiction of her behavior, despite it being like, you know, super crazy and like kind of entertaining to watch, low key is kind of like accurate. Like you. Sometimes.
Do you think? I feel like the diagnosis that they state that she has.
Oh, the diagnosis that they say that she has doesn't align with what.
Yeah, I was like, that's like antisocial personality.
Yeah, it's all of that. Not great. But I will say, like, just there are people out there that do behave this way. Yeah. So
it sucks that it's like. She's the bad guy, like she's the villain, she's the scary person.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. And I mean,
we're saying like this is entertaining.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's what we're here to do is to like talk about this, how this movie is entertaining. But I mean that I was gonna save this till the end, but like it is kind of this big conversation. It's like it's not really.
It's sad.
It is sad because like there are people who are like this, and it does perpetuate stigma. Yeah. But we're gonna keep talking about it.
So, anyways, what does she do next?
Yeah,
it's bad.
But I guess like having us both having a psychology background, like that is kind of like part of what makes this movie scary. Is like knowing like, oh, you know, this isn't just a movie. Like this is actually like real life for some people.
Yeah.
But well, you know what? We're here to talk about a movie, so yeah, we're gonna keep on that. But just know that we feel that way on the inside. Ooh, all right. I'm feeling the hypocriticism.
I know. I hate it, and that's the thing. It's like you have things like Split and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, it's like a way to perpetuate stigma. With like mental illness, but at the same time, it's like fun to watch, and it feels so icky and weird. And
this Jeffrey Dahmer Jeffrey Dahmer like drama TV show just came out on Netflix, and like some people are upset about it because it kind of like glorifies this like serial killer killing people. And we as a society, like, we eat that up when...
Yeah, that's the thing, like, true crime.
Yeah.
It's like, we find it so fascinating. We're so like enthralled by it. And it's like, these are like people who have killed real people. Like these are like really sad stories.
Yeah.
And we're here just like, ooh,
Being
entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which sucks, but like I'm also a part of it, which
Yeah.
like it feels really weird.
Yeah. So I guess ultimately we're not taking a side on this because it's really easy to understand both sides on this. It's like, yes, you should not be stigmatizing this and making it worse, but also like this movie is very entertaining. I don't know. It feels like you can have both.
Yeah. I think we have the critical consciousness to not take this as like and apply it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't view people with mental illness as like
villains.
these like, really harmful
It's like
ways.
like ultimately like people
Yeah.
need to get help.
Yeah. So I
Yes.
think in our situation, we critically can think about it and
Yeah.
we know how to like not perpetuate that stigma.
Yes.
But we still like engage in entertainment that
Right.
might get like that gives off.
And in certain cases, like, we can't, there's nothing we can really do about it.
I mean, we could not watch these movies.
I guess, but even like the Batman The Long Halloween, like, most of Batman's villains are put into
Yeah.
Arkham Asylum because they have like some kind
and they
of.
like specify, they're like, this villain has schizophrenia.
Right.
This villain, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah.
dang.
Yeah. Well, this is the part of the movie. Yeah, sorry, we're gonna move on now. But just know that like we have that in the back
Yeah.
of our minds, and we're not just we don't want to just sit here and make fun of the whole thing. But at the same time, this is a movie, and it is a ridiculous movie, regardless of who you are. It's a very ridiculous movie, and I want to finish it. This is the part where the listener's like, all right, well, get on. I want to know what's happening next. And we will. Just want to make sure that we covered that part because I did want to mention it at the end, but we're doing it now.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is the part where Rebecca starts self-harming herself and then is in her bed, and Sarah comes home and she pretends that a man beat her up while she was out looking for Cuddles the cat. Gosh, this is just so sad. And now having framed it this whole way, dang. Oh, it's so intense. Gosh. Well, then they go to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like Rebecca is like, well, Sarah doesn't want to go home to Thanksgiving. She was going to stay with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because Thanksgiving is just a really hard time. That's when her sister died. And so
that's
like
right.
Thanksgiving just doesn't feel like a fun time.
And she's from Wisconsin, was it?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Illinois,
Yeah.
Iowa.
Yeah. And so then Sarah's like, oh, you can come to Thanksgiving with me. And
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, Rebecca's like, you can come to Thanksgiving with me. And how Sarah frames it to her boyfriend of like why she's going with Rebecca rather than staying with him is like,
right.
she needs me. Like this thing just recently happened. She needs me.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna
whole thing
go.
with Cuddles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Or the getting beat up by a
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And stabbed. Gosh. Yeah. Well, this is when we find out that Rebecca's rich.
we knew that at the beginning.
I didn't. Why? How? Why? Why did we know that?
In the very beginning, when Rebecca comes in, Sarah's like looking at her clothes and is like, "This is like designer clothes," and she's like, "Oh yeah, like that's my parents' way of like showing love is just buying me anything I want, like because we have money."
Oh.
And so yeah, so you know that she's rich.
I didn't pick up on that because she's driving a Porsche convertible on the way to Thanksgiving, and I'm like, why? She shouldn't, but she is. But yeah, they go to Thanksgiving at Rebecca's, and like you can tell that like her parents like know like there's something up with her, and they're in her hometown, and her mom asks Sarah if Rebecca's been taking her medication, and that's when it's like, oh yeah, like the parents do know, like there's a history here, and they even go to like the next day, they're like, oh, like we're gonna go see Rebecca's high school hangouts, and they're like getting coffee, and some local girls are like, oh, like they see Rebecca and they're like, oh crap, like it's Rebecca. This is when Nina Dobrev has her one scene. Nina Dobrev from Vampire Diaries fame. She is there and she's like, ew, like please leave. And also, okay, Rebecca is like been sketching a lot. She like has been drawing like this like specific woman, or she has like drawings of this specific woman, and Sarah recognizes Nina Dobrev as that woman. She's like, oh, that's the girl from her drawings. And they leave, and Nina Dobrev like stops Rebecca and is like, Rebecca, we were never friends.
Well, so before that, Rebecca and Sarah stop at their table. Yeah. And Rebecca's like, oh, hi, like, how are you? I want you to meet my friend, Sarah. And then they walk, like, it's an awkward, like, stare down. And so then Sarah's like, maybe we should go because this is awkward. And then that's when she gets up and stops and was like, we were never friends. Like, why are you acting like we were?
And this is when I'm like, okay, Sarah, all the red flags. All the red flags have been planted. I mean, you really, like, how many more do you need?
Exactly.
And then Irene is back in town. Oh, Irene. She is going to have a great time for the rest of this movie.
I see your notes on the way you capitalized.
I wrote all caps. Oh, no, Irene is back in town. Because I'm like, this just spells bad news for Irene. So Rebecca starts going to the studio a lot to draw because she feels inspired. And this is when Sarah goes snooping and she finds a prescription for Zyprexa, which is antipsychotic medication. I Googled it. The movie does do a good job of saying this is an antipsychotic medication treatable for schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Mm-hmm. Which did line up with my Google search. Now,
she pulled out the DSM.
Well, actually, I should say my Google search just said that it was an antipsychotic medication. So I'm like, okay, at least there's that. Mm-hmm. But Rebecca goes to a gas station at one point. And there's like a dude that's hitting on her, and she just puts gas all over him, and she's like whips out a lighter, and she's like, I'll do it.
I mean, he was all up on her.
Yeah.
Like, how else do you protect
And he's
yourself?
like, yo, chill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, this girl will go to any lengths. And so then I'm like, oh no, like Rebecca has Irene in her crosshairs, like hard. Mm-hmm. And so Rebecca goes to the club. Despite not being a club person, she goes to the club, finds Irene in the bathroom. Irene starts hitting on her, and then they start like hooking up, I guess. Oh yeah, they make out in the bathroom at the club. Mm-hmm. Irene takes her back to her place, and then Sarah is on a run the next day, and she's like, "Oh, let me stop by Irene's," but no response. And I'm like, okay. Maybe I don't even know what that means, but Sarah meets up with Rebecca, and Rebecca's like, I want a tattoo. And this one I was like, skirt, like what is about to happen here now?
Yeah. Because she mentions earlier that she would never get a tattoo.
Oh, she did.
Yeah,
that's right. Because
that's why. That's why
she's like, something I'll never understand, or an art form I'll never understand, like people putting pins in your skin.
And then Sarah's like, I have a tattoo, and then she's like, oh really? That's when she shows her
the Emily tattoo,
and says like, this was my sister's name, and
yada yada. Yeah. So they go to the tattoo parlor. They're looking at a catalog of tattoos, and Rebecca's like, I think I know what I want. And so she like goes to get her tattoo, and she comes back out, and what does she get? She's like, look, and it's the Emily tattoo in the exact same place where Sarah has it. And she's like, you can call me Emily if you want. I'm like your sister now. And Sarah's, oh man. And Sarah's like, like, nope. Sarah moves out, moves in with Steven.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Can't find her necklace. That's That was Emily's.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can't find her necklace. Steven goes back to find the necklace, and Rebecca's like, "What did I do?"
And he's like, "Girl."
And then she takes a picture of him.
Yes.
It's like,
so scary.
what are you doing? Yeah.
He was like, I'm getting out of here. Let me know if you see the necklace.
Yeah. Also, like, she should tell somebody and make sure that she's taking her medication. And, like, Sarah should be telling people, like, maybe Rebecca needs help.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. That should have been happening from the
get-go.
jump.
Yeah. Which she doesn't do.
Jump.
Which she doesn't do.
Go to a RA or something.
Because this is not like a painting mental health in the best picture type of movie.
But I will say, though, especially as an 18-year-old going into college,
you
teenagers don't really know what to do
Yeah.
when a friend is struggling. And and then you also, like, you get afraid, like, what if you get them in trouble somehow or, like, whatever. And so it can be really hard for, like,
somebody
to go to someone and be like, I think my friend's having a hard time, or, like, or maybe now it's easier because there's much more, like, mental health literacy that, like, we talk about it a lot more.
Yeah,
so
the
maybe
stigma's getting better.
Yeah, so maybe teenagers are more equipped. But I know, like, when I was an undergrad, people didn't know what to do, like, if someone was really struggling and how to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, like, 18-year-olds, like, you're an adult, but you're not. Like, there's still so much more you have to learn at that age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sarah moves in with Steven, but she finds a sketch pad in her stuff, which is not hers, and she goes through it, and it's like the same drawing of her, I think, but like slightly improved on each page, which is pretty creepy stuff. Then it gets better. Jason the X shows up.
I always forget about him.
Jason the X shows up, and he goes to where he believes Sarah to be living, which is her old dorm room, which Rebecca's at now. And he knocks on the door. Like, he just shows up. He hasn't spoken with her. He just shows up to her dorm room, just like, come on, man. Grow up a little bit. Let it go. She's got a new beau.
I mean, that's how men can be.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's how women can be too. I don't want to just
fair.
Put on the men.
Fair. I mean, it is, especially when you had, like, a high school sweetheart and you're, like, going to school and you got the long distance, and, like, I kind of lived through a little bit of that, so it's like I kind of get where his head was at, but, like, oh man, you wouldn't show up without
them knowing.
Yeah. Not a good look. But some people do.
I was like,
do
I've
that.
seen it happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen.
So, you can show up without them knowing, like, if you're in a happy long distance relationship and it's like a surprise. I saw a TikTok of that happening recently, and the boyfriend was, like, really happy that his girlfriend was there.
Yeah.
Usually in the movies when that happens, it's like they're cheating or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if they're, like, broken up, like, yeah, don't do that.
Especially if it's their place of work. Do not show up to their place of work. Just putting that out there.
I feel like there's a story there, but that's not for us to talk about here.
Saying.
So Rebecca is in her room having a full meltdown with her box cutter, just not doing anything with it, but just playing with it. Not a good vibe. And Jason, the ex-boyfriend, leaves a note saying where he's staying, and then Rebecca pulls her greatest stunt yet and dyes her hair, puts on Sarah's awful hat, puts on the hat. I am obsessed with this blue fedora. Nobody should own, like, a sky blue fedora.
At least it had some utility in this scene.
This is the part where I'm like, well, this is why the fedora exists at all. Is that she basically dresses herself up as Sarah.
Puts on the perfume.
Puts on her sister's necklace, is sporting the tattoo.
Yeah, she's got the tattoo.
She sneaks into Jason's room at night and pretends to be her, and he's like, oh, I missed you, and they like start to kind of get a little frisky, and then she's like, what does she say? She's like, you'll never have her or something.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Well, kills him with the box cutter.
Yeah.
Like,
which, like, she only gets one good stab, and it's like not even in like a.
He's dead.
Yeah. It's just this box cutter really threw me. She uses it quite a few times, and I'm like, I'm not entirely understanding how it's having the impact. The box cutter doesn't seem like it would have that kind of damage.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie though, like the box cutter, for me is kind of like, that's like triggering stuff, because that's when kids, like when teens like self-harm, like it is like that, those things that you don't think about that are like in the home, like it's the sharps, like that's what the professionals, like, you know, when you're talking to parents and your teen might have like suicidal ideation, you like make sure that the sharps are being put away, and the box cutter is one of those ones where it's like you might not even think about it. So for me, I guess like having that professional background, seeing her like messing around with this box cutter so much is like, oh, I really wish she wouldn't.
I guess in the case of him though, because wasn't it like kind of like in his shoulder a little bit or something like that?
He's
his
dead.
Back?
He's dead.
His back.
He's dead.
That's what I was like. I don't get it.
The point of this scene ultimately is that
don't think about it too much.
She kills the ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
Don't think about it too much. She kills the ex-boyfriend. Now, Sarah is needed at Irene's place. She gets a message from Irene, need you. She goes, the door is open, Irene is tied up in the bed, and Rebecca has a gun now.
Where'd that come from?
That's a great question. Yeah, I don't know.
Had it, I guess.
Maybe it's
Irene's.
Maybe it's Irene's. Maybe she bought it herself, which would be its own kind of like meta commentary on gun control and why people with a mental health background such as that should not have access to buying a gun. But anyway, that's not for here. That's not for us to debate about. But so Sarah says, I'm sorry. And Rebecca's like, Sarah's like, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, she does say that.
She's got a gun pointed at her. She's like, I'm sorry. And Rebecca's like, it's okay, it's fine, but you can only have one best friend. And she like points the gun at Irene, and then she goes to just go kill Irene, and it's like a scuffle ensues because this is the end of the movie. And Rebecca almost shoots Irene. Steven comes, he saves the day, punches her. You know, I'm not here for a man to be harming a woman, but in this scene, highly warranted, because this girl is out. I feel like I'm stigmatizing, but she needs help. So
she is causing harm.
She is causing harm. She's a danger to other people. So he's doing what he's got to do. Scuffle ensues. Sarah almost falls out of the window. Steven gets hit. They are having like a very real fight. I'm like watching this, and I'm like,
on point.
Yeah, stunts on point. I'm like, they are some hard hits. Ultimately, Sarah stabs Rebecca with the box cutter in the back, but she dies. Right?
Yeah,
she dies. And that's like the end of the movie. She moves back. Sarah moves back into her room by herself. The same room, right?
Yeah. I would not. I would be so traumatized.
Yeah. Okay. So they move. Oh, Steven helps Sarah move back into the room, and then she's like, wait, like one last thing, and they move the bed, they move the second bed, like Rebecca's old bed, out into the hallway, and they're like, cool. Dinner tonight, cool. And scene. Like that's and then roll the credits. And I'm like, are we not gonna talk about Jason, the dead ex-boyfriend? Because at this point the movie just caps off with like, oh, okay, Rebecca's dead now, everything's all good. But it's like, hey, two people are dead. Irene's probably got emotional trauma. Sarah's probably got emotional trauma. She probably needs to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Steven, I mean, he was there. He's a support for, all these people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the movie paints a horrible picture of like really how all of this should have gone down. And it does, stigmatize mental health for the sake of entertainment, which is like it's bad. It's very bad. But also when you just look at the movie as a whole, it's like, oh my gosh, it's such a mess. It's like, it's entertaining. So it's like, it's kind of weird to have a take on this one. Mm-hmm. It's like people should not watch it, but also you'll have a good time if you do.
Yeah.
I'm not here to be an authority.
I would say, like, watch it if you want to watch it.
Yeah.
But, like, you...
Be responsible.
Yeah, just, like, don't take this as, like, mental illness. People with mental illness are scary and, like, that sort of thing. Because that's not the reality of it.
Yeah.
But, like, you just watch it if you want to.
Help people get help. There are hotlines. There are numbers.
Yeah.
988.
Yeah. Just, like, be educated about mental health.
Yes. If you know anybody who's struggling, speak up.
Yeah. Also, maybe don't watch it if you yourself struggle with some like mental health issues, because maybe it's not the best.
Yeah.
There might be a lot of triggers.
Yeah.
If you've been in like abusive relationships, whether that's through friendships or like actual like romantic relationships, might be a bit difficult to get through.
Yeah.
There are definitely like toxic traits that I'm sure a lot of people have experienced with someone. So
yeah, and if you have, that's kind of what perpetuates making this movie scarier.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, with it ending in this like climactic like battle scene, is really not the way you want it to go.
No, I would hope not.
So don't let that happen in real life. Like, speak up, say something. Don't imagine that if you don't, like, if you keep this person in your life, that it's going to end in like a crazy battle with like the person threatening to like kill people. It's like it's not always that serious.
I mean, this is like definitely like
this is a movie.
Hollywoodified.
Yeah.
But I mean, in life there are people who like will threaten their own life and things like that if you try to leave them. So
it is usually that. Yeah. Just a very intense form of manipulation.
Yeah. So always call for help.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes.
That's the best you can do, is just call for help.
And I mean, if you know anybody that is like threatening to harm themselves and you're like not sure what to do, like you can call 911 and ask to have a welfare check done on that person, and they will go and they'll check on that person. So look at us turning this movie around into like hey, these are things that you can actually do if you encounter like something like this.
It's important.
And be good to yourself, have
Take
boundaries.
care of yourself. Yeah.
I mean, if you do find yourself in a relationship like this, like with another person, whether romantic or just like a friendship, like it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to set expectations about what you're comfortable with. And ultimately it doesn't matter if the other person is like mentally sick or not. If people aren't respecting your boundaries, they're not respecting your boundaries. Have the self-love to know like when your boundaries are being violated, and stick up for yourself. Yeah,
what you said.
Thank you. So yeah, that's the end of like, I would love to get out of this discussion as quick as possible.
The worst thing is next week is psychological thrillers, which is just like a whole week of like essentially the same thing.
So what are we talking about next week?
Yes.
And it's all for entertainment.
I know.
Halloween, baby.
Yeah. I honestly, and also I don't have any notes for this movie. The notes are kind of whack. There's nothing interesting, so
This whole movie discussion is really making me reflect on,
honestly,
like, just the industry and the whole spooky, what we find entertainment. Spooky's cool. Spooky's cool.
Yeah.
The spooky vibes of October is cool. It's just like, I guess what we find, where we get our entertainment from. Mm-hmm. When you really think about it, it can be pretty questionable.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you gotta just hope that there's that open discussion about like why these movies are like not accurate.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, be critical, ask questions, get educated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next week, psychological thrillers. Now it seems so poorly placed.
Yeah, it does feel like bad taste. But,
Yeah.
Well,
you know?
hey, listeners know what they're here for. We talk about movies, we break them down, we try to have a fun conversation about it, but if something serious needs to be said, then, you know,
we won't shy away from it.
Yes.
Okay, so next week, I am assigning you a really old movie I haven't watched in a really long time, and I think it fits the psychological thrillers. When I Googled it, it said it was a psychological thriller, if I remember, but it's called The Glass House. And honestly, I can't even give you like a prep of what it's about because I don't remember, but I just remember when I was young and I saw it, I was like, what is this? This is like
any idea what year it came out?
Oh, early 2000s, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glass House.
The Glass House.
Can I see the movie poster?
Of course. Hold on. Movie.
Well, while you're doing that, I am
2001 is when it came out.
Okay. Wow.
So we'll see how it goes. It has a Scars card. It has Stellan in it.
Wait a minute. Can I see that?
Yeah. I just remember being young and watching it and being like kind of freaked out, but like interested at the same time.
Have
you seen it? Are you
that's what I'm worried about. Does she have a sister?
I think she has a little brother.
Okay, never mind then. We're good. I haven't seen it.
I think.
Yeah, no, there's another movie where this girl like goes home and like her sister's there, but then it turns out her sister's actually been dead the whole time.
No, that's not this movie.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, then yes, I have never seen this movie. All right,
it's labeled a psychological mystery thriller.
Always fun.
Yeah.
So I am, for this theme, I'm giving you Twin Peaks, which is a TV show created by David Lynch, I want to say. It was created in the very early 90s. Stars Kyle MacLachlan. And it's a whole mess. Well, I don't want to say too much. The less you know, the better. Take the mess part away. Just go in with an open mind and see what you find. It's going to be an interesting discussion.
I'm excited. I've always heard about it, so I want to.
Yeah, no, it is a good show. I've actually never finished it. I've only watched the first season, which is like 8 or 10 episodes.
Isn't it a book?
No.
Oh, for some reason I thought it was a book.
And they did like a follow-up show continuing the story like 5 years ago, I want to say.
Are you sure it's not like also based on a book?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure that it's not.
Like I feel like there's an author who created a series of books and it's got the same vibes and like people were like, "Oh, Twin Peaks like kind of adapted it from that."
We'll talk about that next week and I'll have the actual facts on that because right now I'm not sure.
Got you. Well,
it's very David Lynchian, which to me says like this is
original. Since it's the last full week of October, I'm going to go ahead and say like the list of movies that I plan to watch in case anyone wants to watch them.
Go for it.
So tomorrow we have Parasite, which I have actually never seen. I'm really excited to watch. We have Twin Peaks. We have Black Swan. I love Black Swan. We have The Glass House, Get Out, Seven, and The Shining.
Twin Peaks is a show. So are you saying that you're watching?
Well, we'll have to split it up.
A day. But didn't you say one of the days was Twin Peaks?
I did because I thought Twin Peaks was a movie when I created this, and so like we'll split it up.
Okay.
But yeah, you don't have to watch the show. But
I want to watch some like tonight if we can.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, we don't have to. I mean, yeah.
No. That's fine.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost 7:00.
Yep.
I gotta cook dinner, yo.
It just like took me to like Scooby Doo.
Yeah, my bad.
I gotta cook dinner, yo.
Don't you mean Melvin do? So funny. Yeah, this one went long.
It did.
I expected it to go short, actually, but
I know. I feel like we didn't even really have facts. Well, you had facts about Batman. I didn't have any facts.
I had barely any facts about Batman. I pulled all of those facts out of my own brain, actually. Wow. I couldn't find very many facts on this book. Most of those were just like, oh, I just knew that already. Me being a Batman fan.
Batman fan.
A Batman fan.
Batman fan.
Yeah. All right. Well, look forward to next week's episode.
We got Twin Peaks and The Glass House.
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch The Glass House. It's been so long since I've seen that movie.
That movie poster's...
It's wild. The little lightning bolt.
Oozing 2001. It's going to be great.
It's going to be fantastic.
All right. See you then.
Bye.
All right.